Hello everybody, welcome to today's chair class. I am Coach Lindsay. We are going to be doing a hip strength and mobility chair class today. So it's not going to be really any strength training, it's more mobilization of the hips. This class is really good to do before and or after a walk or any type of workout if you have hip arthritis or have any hip issues. This is just really good to get those hips mobilized, like I said, before or after a workout. So without further ado, we're just going to go ahead and get started. We're going to jump right into it. You don't need anything other than a chair. Make sure it's nice and sturdy so that it doesn't have wheels, it's not cushiony, you have a good foundation. That's really all you need. So we're gonna make sure that we are in a good chair posture position before we do anything. So I want you all to scoot a little bit forward on your chair, just maybe an inch or two, so that the key here is we're not slumped back in the chair, relying on the back of that chair. We want to rely on our core instead. And then we want to scoot forward enough to where we have a good foundation under our feet. So a nice 90-degree angle, feet are flat on the ground, and then pay attention to your core engagement lastly. So once you have yourself sit in your chair, we don't want to be like this. We want to have our shoulders dropped away from our ears, nice and tall, core nice and engaged, kind of pretending like we have a string on the top of our head and someone is pulling it up. So once you have a good position in the chair, we're gonna just start with a little bit of mobilizing stretches. So we're gonna start with first taking our left leg and we're gonna take it all the way out as far as we can. So the key here is to keep this right leg nice and straight, nice and flat on the ground. And then this left leg is gonna come out as far as possible. So pay attention to your range of motion. That goes true for the entire class. But we want to feel a nice stretch here in the inner thigh, what we call our hip flexor. So we're going to start here. Once you have a good stretch in here, we're just going to hold on to it. So keep that core nice and engaged. Take that foot out, point that toe. We'll hold here for about 20 seconds and then we'll switch sides. So it's really good to kind of get the mobilization and stretching done first before we hop into some of these more tight exercise type movements. But today we're not really going for reps or anything. We're kind of just holding these stretches. Please do them longer if you need to, or kind of keep going after we're done today if you need a little bit more mobilization. So let's go ahead and switch sides. Bring that left leg in. We're gonna take that right leg out this time. So again, pointing that toe, kind of resting your weight on the outer part of that big toe. Keeping that right leg nice and straight, left leg is still bent. And again, you're feeling that nice, good stretch here in that hip flexor. A little bit here on the outer part of the glute and hip as well, but mostly in that hip flexor. It can also help if you're not feeling a deep enough stretch to lean a little bit forward. Not too much, but that'll get that deeper stretch there in the hip flexor. We'll hold here for about 15 more seconds. Excellent job, mighty family. 3, 2, and 1. Let's go ahead and bring that leg back in. You should start feeling some warmth through the hips now. So now we're gonna start with some hip in and outs. So I want you to kind of practice being light on your feet. So when I say light on your feet, we're not planted on the ground, but we're not up on our tippy toes either. So you're kind of have like a nice little bend in the toes there to where you're kind of on your toes, but again, you're not on your very tippy toes. So nice and light on your feet. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the hips out and in. So I kind of feel like we're doing a little bit of ballet in a sense here, but just kind of keep going with this motion of out and in. And every time you go out, try to go a little bit further. You can use your hands as a guide to help push your knees out a little bit if you need to. So every time you come out, push them out a little bit, come back in and out. So again, this is just getting that mobilization and the inner part of the hip flexor stretched out even further. We tend to hold a lot of tightness in our inner thighs. And so this really helps to kind of just get everything mobilized here. So we'll do a couple more, about 15 more seconds of these here before we move on. It's kind of nice to see if you can get a little bit further. Again, it's really good to expand that range of motion if possible. And this is just also one of my favorite stretches, especially if you're feeling really tight in the hips. Excellent. 3, 2, and 1. Awesome job, mighty family. Moving on to hip circles. So we're gonna start with our left leg. We're gonna take that left leg and extend it out just a little bit, so where that right leg is still flat on the ground. And then we're gonna pretend like our big toe is a pencil, and we're just gonna do some circles here. So we're starting to mobilize the outer part of the hip. So as you come around, you're gonna feel that outer part of your hip start to stretch. And we're just getting some range of motion. So we have, although we're working on our hips, we have muscles connecting our knee and our hips. So getting that mobilization in the knee is just as important as getting it in the hips. So go ahead and do a few more rotations with whatever direction you started with, and then we're gonna switch directions here. So going the opposite direction where you have a little bit more tightness probably in the outer hip as you come back around, but just pay attention again to what that tightness feels like. And if you need to make your circles a little bit slower, that is totally fine. Starting to feel a little bit more loose there in the hips myself. So hopefully you're feeling the same. Couple more rotations here and we'll switch sides. Excellent job. Let's go ahead and switch sides. So right side this time, again, pretending like that big toe is a pencil, and we're just gonna start with those circles. So you might find one leg, you can make bigger circles than the other. That just kind of is the way our bodies work. Sometimes we're stronger on one side than we are on the other, especially if you have had maybe one side of a hip replacement, or maybe you just hold arthritis in one side of your hip, but always good to balance it out, work both sides the same. So try to keep that big toe on the ground. Again, kind of pretending like you're drawing a circle with your toe. And go ahead and switch sides. Excellent job. A little bit of tightness here. If you start to feel warmth or you start to feel crampy, please just kind of relax your leg. That's certainly okay. Excellent job. Go ahead and relax. Roll those ankles out a little bit. That can be tough on the ankles. So next exercise is what we call hip flexor openers. So I have a weight here. You probably have noticed. This is more so just kind of as a barrier object. So it kind of helps to have an object for this exercise, but you don't need one. But what this looks like is we're going to start with our left leg. Be light on the feet again, so not pointed, not flat. And we're going to take that hip, we're going to come out, kind of pretending like you're going up and over the weight, and then back in. Okay, so we're gonna stick with that left leg. Join me when you're ready, but really we're just kind of mobilizing that outer part of the hip. If you start to feel like as you're coming back, it's getting really tight and crampy, just bring it in a little bit further, that's fine. But the key is here to come up and over, tap the toe, up and in. So we'll do this a few times here. Again, just mobilizing the hip. That's why I really like this class for before or after walks or runs or any kind of strength training that involves the legs. It's really good to loosen up those hips so that you're not getting that kind of muscle soreness or that tightness in the hip is bad. So we'll do a few more here and then we'll switch sides. Last one here, up and over, and then back in. Excellent job. If you're using a weight or object, go ahead and switch sides. We're gonna do the same thing on the right side. Remember to check in with your form. Make sure you're sitting nice and tall, forward on the chair, your feet aren't flat on the ground, and then become light on the toe on that right side. And we're up and out, and then back in. So try to pay attention to only your hips moving here. So it can be really easy to have that full body rotation and wanna rotate. Try not to do that. Try to pretend like your butt is glued to your chair, and then we're just moving the hips here. So like I said, it's okay if you can't come out as far, but that's why this is a good thing to practice, because maybe the more times you practice, not maybe, it will happen, the more times you practice this, maybe the wider that you can get. So a couple more here. Excellent job. Really pay attention to keeping that that left leg nice and flat, nice and stable. A few more here. And last one. Excellent job. Shake those legs out. Next thing we're gonna do is some knee drops. So we practiced a lot of outer stretching of the hips. Now we're gonna bring the knees in. So what this looks like is we're gonna start with that left leg. You're gonna keep your right leg nice and straight, and we're just taking that knee and we're just bending it in. So again, we're gonna try not to transition our hips too far. Of course, you're gonna need to transition them a little bit to the side, but really drop that knee in to where you kind of have like a 90-degree angle this way. And then you'll start to feel the outer part of that hip stretch, okay? So again, right leg is flat on the ground. We are just dropping that knee in. If you need a break, ideally we wanna hold this as a static stretch. If you need a break, if that outer side of your hip starts to cramp, you can bring it back in, let your hips readjust, and then come back in. But ideally we wanna hold this as a static movement. really kind of getting some uncomfortableness in the outer part of the hip, but that's okay. We just don't want pain of any kind. So pay attention to that. You can drop it in a little bit further if you're needing a deeper stretch. We'll hold for about 10 more seconds here. 3, 2, and 1. Relax that left leg, and same thing on the right side, okay? So making sure you're adjusting or getting kind of in the middle and checking in with your form, and then dropping that right knee in. So again, your hips are going to go a little bit to the left here, but not too far. And we want to drop that right knee in to where you feel that good stretch here in the outer hip. You can take it in a little bit further and a little bit more down if you need to. You should have a good 90-degree angle here with that leg and the foot. One thing I forgot to mention, which is super weird for me, is remember to breathe, okay? Making sure that you're inhaling and exhaling. Can be really easy to hold your breath when you're doing kind of a tougher stretch. So please make sure you're keeping that breath rhythm going. We'll hold for about 10 seconds here, and then we'll move on. 3, 2, and 1. Excellent job. Relax. Stretch those hips out a little bit. We've got a few more stretches here. Next thing we're going to do is an internal and external rotation. So we're going to start with that left leg. We're going to bring that leg up, and then we're going to take the foot in and swing it out, kind of like a pendulum. Okay, so again, you're going to feel a good stretch in the hip flexor when you have that internal rotation, and then external rotation is going to target that outer part of your hip. So we're just going to swing that leg back and forth. I really like this one if you're someone who sits a lot, like I do. I sit a lot at my desk. And so this is always a good one if you're starting to feel a lot of tightness in your hips, is just to do this internal and external rotation of the leg here. Excellent job. A few more here. I know it's a little bit hard for us to hold our leg up for this long. And go ahead and relax that left leg. Same thing on the right side. So again, adjust, make sure you're still got that core engagement. We're gonna lift that right leg up, and we're gonna do that pendulum motion. So in and out. Of course, it's a little bit harder to swing out. We don't have as much flexibility with the outer part of our hip, but try to swing in as much as you can. I notice for me, this right side's a lot tighter than that left side. So just means I need to work it a little bit more. Swinging out and in, keep that toe pointed. That's going to help with that stabilization of the leg. Excellent job. You'll notice I kind of like hold on to my hips. I think that's also a useful strategy because you can feel that joint moving, which is also kind of nice just to see where you're targeting, what area of that hip you're targeting. So always a useful tip is hold on to the muscle that you're moving or the joint that you're moving. A few more here. Excellent job. Go ahead and relax. We're gonna do some stretches now as we've kind of done some mobilizing movements. We've got 2 stretches here to kind of finish things out. So we're gonna take it into my favorite stretch, which is our figure 4 stretch. So starting with that left leg, you're gonna bring that ankle up on top of that knee, right knee, and then you're gonna take your left hand and push down on that left knee. This is going to stretch out that outer hip. We did lots of outer hip work today. And so hopefully you're feeling a little bit more flexible, hopefully a little bit more or less tightness in the hip joint there. So push down as far as comfortable. If you want a deeper stretch, you can kind of take a big deep breath in and push down a little bit more. Of course, just until it's uncomfortable, not until you feel pain in the outer hip. We'll hold for about 10 more seconds here, and then we'll switch sides. Sitting nice and tall still. 3, 2, and 1. Awesome job. Relax that left leg. Right leg comes up. You know the drill. Same thing on the other side. Right ankle sits on top of the left knee, and then right hand is going to push down on that right knee. Again, I have a lot more tightness here on my right side. It feels like I'm so much more flexible on that left side, which is interesting because I'm right-handed, right-sided. I don't know. Anyways, that's just my talk for you guys today. I tend to ramble a little bit, but you know what? Hopefully it gives you something to listen to that distracts you from the movements. A couple more seconds here. 3, 2, and 1. Excellent job. Last and final exercise or stretch we're gonna do today is we're gonna do some knee to chest rotation. So starting with that left leg, you're gonna wanna scoot a little bit more forward in your chair. This time you can rely on the back of that chair. This is the only time you can. Grab that knee, and then as you kind of rest back in that chair, squeeze that knee to your chest, and then you're gonna rotate it out and in. So you'll feel as you come in that nice stretch through the glute, outer hip, and then as you come out, you'll feel that inner hip flexor. This is one of my favorite stretches to do in addition to the figure 4 stretch, to lying down. So in the chair, it's a little bit tougher to really get full range of motion as you're rotating, but if you are able to, try this on the ground as well, where you're laying completely flat and your leg is extended on the ground, and you'll get a really good stretch there in the hip as well. Keep that rotation going. You can hold it in whatever position feels best. That's the nice thing about stretching, is if you feel you need a little bit extra time in one area, please take it. Excellent job. Let's go ahead and switch sides for our final stretch. So bringing that right leg this time towards your chest, rest back in that chair, and then begin that rotation. So again, kind of rotate out, roll that hip joint in. This is also something good to do maybe prior to some sort of mobilizing class like this, just to see if your range of motion increases throughout the stretches of the class. So another good kind of measure of progress here. We'll do a couple more rotations. Excellent job, Mighty Family. Feel free to keep doing these rotations as they feel so nice, but that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me for today's chair, hip, mobilizing, and stretching class, and I will see you guys next time. Have a great day.